Welcome back, everyone. We will now start our next session with a panel on activating your workforce inside and out. Vicky Chiu, the Global Innovator Development and Total Quality Management Lead at Chow Fook Jewellery Group, will be moderating this panel. And this session is sponsored by Eaton Hong Kong. As we welcome Vicky and the speakers onto stage, if you haven't responded to the poll and perhaps win that great prize, it's poll 2.7. Without further ado, let's welcome Vicky and the speakers onto stage.
Thank you. Have a seat. Since we only have 3, so I think we take this corner. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Vicky from Chow Fook Jewellery Group. Not sure if I'm the only one who attends Rethink for the first time. So thank you for your time here, and today it's our pleasure to have Ellie Tang from New World Development, and also Emma from Gammon Construction Limited. And this section is about how do we activate our workforce to drive our sustainability goals inside and out. So I believe this is a very special time of the year that we can make it happen today, to have such exchange with you in person. I hope in the upcoming 30 minutes we can actually get more views from the floor and also from online. And today our goal is to share with you what some companies have been doing, and also how do they look forward to the future in adapting to the new normal after the COVID-19, and also bringing awareness across the board, like in terms of how we drive ideas from the bottom up, and also to keep people move forward. I think that's the purpose of sustainability is, no matter what challenges we're facing, we still hope that we can ensure everybody takes care of themselves and also takes care of the growth of the whole world. So, who shall we start first? May I introduce Ellie to share with us her opening with everybody. Thank you, Ellie. Ellie, you can share some practice from New World in this special time of the year that you have been engaging your people.
Hi, everyone. As part of the project's owner, I guess. Welcome to K11 Atelier Kings Road. My name is Ellie Tang, and I look after sustainability at the group, New World Development, and also K11. So thanks for the question, Vicky. I'm really happy to be here to share with you just some of our lessons learned and experience so far in the past about 5 years of integrating environmental, social, and governance considerations into all of our different businesses. I think when we talk about sustainability and ESG, employees generally find it a bit intangible and maybe daunting or irrelevant to their different roles. To start off our ESG journey, we made it very clear that we want to articulate this proposition and make it relevant not only just to our customers, but to our internal business unit stakeholders, our employees. And the way we decided to do that, first of all, across different business sectors covered by our group companies, with property at the core business, is to identify what's material, because sustainability simply is too far-fetched, and it's such a broad topic. We don't usually know where to start. So from property onwards, we look into the key environmental impacts. So those would be impact relating to site selection, to the construction process, and the way we build buildings. So for example, this particular project was planned about 6 years ago, and we decided to achieve triple platinum certification by way of Hong Kong Beam Plus, the US LEED Green Building Standard, as well as the WELL Healthy Building Standard. With this vision in mind, and this is ahead of the global pandemic and what we now call the new normal, because we simply see an ongoing gravitation of integrating wellness into the sustainability agenda, and the need to make climate change or environmental protection relevant to everybody by way of wellness. So I think finding the material aspect first and foremost is very important in engaging our people per se, whether they're internal or external stakeholders. And the extent to which we want to drive this agenda, I think it's important to find a common goal, regardless of which sector a business sits in. So for us, that means while we are starting off to encourage sustainable development through our business operations, we want to ensure everything we do, every bit of our effort, is aligned to the global directions of sustainable development. So that brings us to understanding and exploring what the UN Sustainable Development Goals are calling for. Preaching to the choir here, I'm sure many of people in the audience have heard of the UN SDGs. So there are basically 17 goals that the United Nations have charted out to align global efforts around economic development, social, environmental improvements. So from those 17 broad directions, we have selected the most relevant goals pertaining to, say, health and well-being, education, sustainable cities and communities, to establish our 2030 vision, under which in the past couple of years we've worked hard to set more quantifiable targets so we can, on an ongoing basis, share the glory with our internal stakeholders who have contributed different measures, improvement initiatives, data for disclosure, awards, or even lessons learned to really add value to what we now call as a group to create shared value with all of our stakeholders. So that's basically how we engage our people, our internal employees, to start with in a nutshell.
Great. Translating the strategy into clear goals is really important to get people started. I understand that Ellie is driving a 2030 strategy at the group, and Emma is also driving the 25 by 25 strategy at Gammon. Can I have Emma to share some background with us?
Have you got one more microphone just there? Yes.
Sure.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Really great to be here today. Did you hear that Dirk's not here? Was that explained? Anyway, I think he sent his apologies. So we have a strategy we call Responsible Growth 25 by 25. And this was really aligned actually with one of our shareholders' views about trying to take construction work off-site. So we see this as a real opportunity for more sustainable construction, is to stop prototyping buildings, which is, as you can imagine, very inefficient, and to standardize as much as possible and take work off-site. So this was one of our key objectives as a business, and to enable more digital ways of working, things like this. So what we did was incorporate all of those kinds of ambitions, which we shared in Hong Kong as well and Singapore, into a strategy that linked then to this 25 by 25. So it's more of a catchphrase to try and make it memorable for people, and I think that's important, is to try and simplify things as much as possible so that people can remember them, they can relate to it. And then we set very, very simple goals and objectives. We've got quantified targets, but again, keeping it as simple as possible so people can understand it at a working level. I think one of the really good examples of how we're bringing sustainability into the project scenario is something that was started before I joined Gammon, but I think it's been a really successful program. We call it the Green and Caring Site Commitment Scheme, which is a bit of a mouthful. But it's really about every project. We have about 40 to 60, up to 100 active projects in Hong Kong, Singapore, at any one time. So you can imagine there's project teams, big or small, working individually, and we try and encourage them to achieve a certain standard based on this scheme. And that covers safety, which is always our number one priority, environment, welfare, particularly for our workers. The standard of welfare on some project sites is not brilliant, so this was really a big drive for Gammon in the past. And then innovation, driving innovation. So every project is encouraged to come up with something a little bit different, a little bit new, whether it's through the design process or whether it's through adopting new technology, and to really drive that and to reward that performance. So if they've managed to get all of these things to a good standard, we give them an award and they're incentivized. So they get some cash to have a party with the whole project team. And also bring that in as KPIs. So the project leader will be encouraged to make sure he achieves the highest standards, which we call this green flag. So I think that's one of the successful examples.
It sounds like a very structured approach, like having 40 to 60 projects. Driving ideas from the bottom up is not easy. There must be some best practice in the communication and to form such culture. Before we go into more sharing, we have an audience poll today, and in reply to Emma's question, Dirk is with us in the poll because Aten is sponsoring for this poll award. So if you haven't responded to it, feel free to do it now. And we're actually looking at which one do you think is the biggest influence on driving employee engagement in terms of sustainability agenda. So I think from communication, from goal setting to like developing project leaders who can find the relevancy in their working level. These are all important elements to include in making things from strategy level to the material level. May I ask, maybe Ellie can share with us some examples that the ideas actually come from the bottom or from the front line in the field and eventually driving some new initiative in the group?
Sure, yeah, happy to. So our group has this practice of encouraging entrepreneurship and sourcing innovative ideas from all different business units. So I think this is really important, both as an HR and talent development initiative, and also for sustainability. Traditionally, I think in large corporates, especially, many people see sustainability as more, the technical side of things, or the sustainability team's business, or just for reporting. There's a little bit of a disconnect. But once we basically add innovation and entrepreneurship into this agenda of sustainability, then I think immediately everybody wakes up and they feel like this is my business as well, and I can be a part of the solution. And everybody loves to hear new ideas. And what we provide as a company is basically different channels, different committees and platforms to guide the idea or project proponents to basically do a feasibility test to see if any innovative concepts can be implemented in specific business units. And if there are positive results coming out of the feasibility test, then on a case-by-case basis, there will be resources provided to the project proponents so they can see their idea basically come through from a strategic, a high level to something being implemented on the ground. And a lot of times within our company, we have a customer committee whereby we openly source different ideas, and the ideas don't necessarily have to come from the employees or the proponent's own role or own department. They could have a friend in another part of the company, and they understand they may be facing a regular environmental or social or even occupational health and safety pain point. And the proponent happens to have come across different potential solutions, and through ongoing understanding and to define the problem statement to assign the solution, we have seen some positive results coming out of it. For example, and I'm sure Emma has come across a lot of these construction-related examples as well. So occupational health and safety is one of our ESG priorities in New World Groups, especially the construction business. So to say mitigate on-site injury and touch wood fatality, we have different mobile app, and we also have an example whereby an employee invented a system, basically an alert system. So when the construction site workers are not wearing their safety helmet properly, there would be an alert sent to the supervisor or the site manager. So, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking, but the idea is, that we encourage entrepreneurship and for people to find solutions, innovative solutions to enhance workflow or to meet a pain point. So we do have a lot of these, bottom-up examples, and we have taken this idea to basically share this mechanism of sourcing ideas, of applying design thinking to build our own UN SDG-focused startup accelerator last year. So this accelerator is called Impact Commons. The idea is that as a group, as I mentioned earlier, we are pushing on all fronts to align our efforts to the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, and we also hope different high potential, high impact startups can do the same and quantify their impact from their businesses being scaled. So through this acceleration program, we'll provide them with mentorship and workshops and help them open doors to the increasing population of impact investors, such as family offices, and there's a full spectrum. Some are return first, some are impact first, but regardless, we think having this very inclusive platform and to share our resources with different partners, we'll be able to source ideas and drive innovation from bottom up.
Great. When you talk about pain points, it echoes what I've experiencing with Frontline. A lot of time when we talk about strategy or sustainability goals, they may not feel it. But when you talk about pain points, that actually connect to the daily work. And apart from the projects that you mentioned, Emma, is there other way that you have done to incentivize them or to encourage ideas from the bottom up?
We have a group of innovation champions. So these are, scouts, innovation scouts. So these are all young people that have been identified within the business or nominated in the business across the different divisions. And so we use them particularly to bring ideas up through to the senior management level. Also, we have similarly our own startup. And so we can go to that startup with ideas, and he will then, or the manager then will take those ideas and investigate those further. We've also been involved in some research and development projects. So we were supporting another startup from the science park on mass battery storage. So they worked with us to develop their solution, which is now providing an alternative to diesel generators. And in fact, also Hipping has also subscribed to this company. So this is a really, this is quite groundbreaking, almost, I think, possibly world-leading example of how we've supported innovation at the grassroots level. So that's our site engineers also helping, and the workers helping with that R&D project. Another example, and it's similar, it's a safety-related example, is developed internally, is a chatbot app that's been designed for us, particularly for safety applications. But then different parties from the sites have said, I can see an opportunity to use this in different ways. So it's for safety observations, it's for safety reporting. Now we use it for monitoring the pest control management that we do on site. We can do things like understand labor on site and program. It records everything through a site diary, so we can trace back things quite easily. So it's was developed with a very simple purpose, but it's been developed even further, and they're using it for identifying plant and safety zones and things like this. So it's quite interesting how it's been adopted, and that was a grassroots level suggestion.
I'm curious how that communication channel was built. The communication channel to report all these essential information, how was it established at the first time?
Word of mouth, I think. Nothing more. We've had our innovation platform as well, but some of these things just come from word of mouth and are transferred through to the right people. So the scouts, for example, they get together and they can bring those ideas forward to the innovation team. So
To try to scale it.
yeah.
Is there similar things at New World or K11?
Yeah, I think very much so. With the innovation or the idea sourcing channels and startup incubation channels, how we have facilitated the participants to communicate is through pitching. We have a lot of pitch challenges. So I think that's in itself is a great exercise for especially employees or different stakeholders that may or may not be comfortable doing a lot of public speaking, or to articulate their ideas to different stakeholders. So in the process of prepping for the pitch, I think in itself it already is an intellectual exercise to help them refine the idea and to anticipate potential questions or challenges from different stakeholders. So basically to refine their idea from different perspectives. So once some of the ideas are proven feasible, they will be taken to senior management. So that's another level of recognition. And in some of the past instances, we have organized showcases of these finalist ideas from the pitch challenges. So it's almost like a celebration with all of the participants, with external judges, including leadership team from, say, Cyberport, from Hong Kong Science Park, so they can overlay the in-house experience with an external perspective of how startups or innovation outside of the company would be evaluated. So I think the process itself matters as much as the result.
Especially appreciate that New World has opened these channels to recruitment, to new candidates or outsiders, to give them a fresh eye view. And that's really what we're talking about, activating the workforce from inside and out. And let us have a look of the result of the audience poll. I think just aligned with what you have discussed, clear goals and purpose seems to be the most important influence on employee engagement. In this special year, 2020, so many challenges and so many uncertainties. Has there been any point of time that you experienced some communication breakdown, or in terms of driving these priorities in sustainability that you found particularly difficult?
I think actually almost the reverse. We started using, and similarly to Kundal, we started using some of these communication platforms like Teams last year, and that has actually enabled us to communicate a little bit more widely. And it's we use now more recently we're using things like Yammer. Whether you like it or not, that's another matter. But it does allow some communication. We've had webinars organized particularly on sustainability, which has enabled us to invite many more people, both internally and externally, than we would normally. So we normally have a conference every couple of years and stakeholder workshops every year or so. So it's enabled us to potentially engage with more people for those webinars. So, and because of COVID, it's made it more easy for people to adjust to that. I guess, and we've had the tools to be able to do that.
That's great.
It is still a challenge. I haven't been on site as much this year, for example. So I always like to do. We do a sustainability report every year, and then we do a roadshow to all the projects. So, we make sure we get in front of all of the the project teams, one of the senior managers within our team, and then we can, create those conversations. Definitely that's suffered this year, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think most companies are, I think, quite similar, and we went through, this journey of like digitalizing our communication. I think if anything during the global pandemic is that there's no lack of information exchange and no lack of tools. So it's about finding what's core, and to engage people online is a little bit different from face to face. So I really do treasure the fact that we have this opportunity to speak to a live audience. It's hard to like avoid fatigue while you're staring at the screen for 40 minutes, a chunk, 10 sessions a day. So I think if there's one positive thing that came out of COVID is this heightened awareness of sustainability in general. There's less of a need for practitioners like us to tell people environmental health actually could affect public health or individual health. So with that in mind, what we have done in addition to utilizing these communication tools to enhance internal workflow, to keep things as usual as much as possible, is to open up digital channels to communicate and continue engaging our customers. I think that's really important. And because of this, increased awareness of sustainability and rising expectations from different stakeholders for us to do different things and address what sustainability would look like under the new normal, that gave us an opportunity to establish new, say, webinar series to hone on to specific sustainability topics, like what does wellness and travel together mean in the future, now that there are bans and hospitality looks very different as an industry, or how does green building designs or healthy building designs have to be modified to rise to the new challenge, right? When we should expect periodic phases of distancing or gathering bans, like what would that look like to build and operate an office building like this? So I think it's great to have digitalized means to continue to communicate, but internally, back to our topic today, like how to activate the workforce, we have decided to have more two-way communication between the top management and the employees. So we have organized a series of town hall meetings where our CEO, Mr. Adrian Chang, sat in front of the screen with the top management team and spoke to all of our business units in various sessions. And I'm sure Chow Fook has attended some of those as well to, reinforce the culture of our company, which is to, create shared value with stakeholders. And during this period of unexpectedness and volatility, we have to remain confident and ambitious to drive our goals. So I think that was very powerful from the top management himself to really reinforce this message and give us confidence to continue to innovate and to work seamlessly across business units to drive sustainability. So I think the tools again are very important, but it's also the angle and the engagement manner to communicate sustainability that made this period a great lesson for all of us.
Yeah, I totally agree. That means that when people are given these digital tools, you're often surprised like how quickly they picked it up, and such learning agility was like exploded in this COVID-19. Talking about the leadership manner, at Gammon, is there any leadership participation that was particularly relevant to our audience that they can go back and share with their own leaders?
I think one of the fantastic things about Gammon is actually our chief executive, Thomas Ho. Yeah. He has been visibly supportive of things like the new ways of working, more so than perhaps some of our other senior management. He's been very, very supportive of flexible working and making sure we're all as safe as possible. He does presentations, meetings to all our project managers on a regular basis, and video messaging to all of the employees, things like this. And he is, in fact, one of the biggest supporters for innovation. This year, we have one of our biggest innovation competitions that I've ever seen. The prize money is quite extraordinary. I should be entering it myself. He's very much supportive of the employees and encouraging them and incentivizing them. He's a great believer in incentivizing.
Wonderful. Let's open up the panel to take questions from the floor. Is there any questions?
Thank you for sharing. That was really insightful. I'd like to know, how do you embed the great big goals that you have articulated? What works well to engage people in achieving those goals, and how are you measuring and tracking, and what kind of impact and great things have you seen from having set those clear goals purpose?
Everyone has different targets. We can talk about this for 5 days. But thanks, Anne, for the question. So under our Sustainability Vision 2030, we have a green target to reduce the entire group's carbon and emissions intensity per million Hong Kong dollar revenue by 50% before 2030, based on 2015 levels. A mouthful again. Long story short, really aggressive goals as the businesses are still growing. And majority of the contributors to this goal would be in our existing operations, mainly from our services arm under NWS, and also NWD would be the property management teams. Not an easy feat. In addition to all that they had already done before the existence of the sustainability agenda, which is to upkeep the building, regular retro commissioning, energy efficiency measures. We're basically trying to dial it up a few notches, and the usual feedback that we get from the team is, who's going to bear the costs? Where would this budget come from? So to facilitate this role, we have to, one, show the teams involved the why behind we're doing this. So one, to articulate the clear common goal. And two, to show them it's not just something that's top down, but our customers actually do appreciate it. Not just investors, but customers. For example, all the participants today, obviously, it's very much in context because Rethink's a sustainability conference. But when you come to this project, you can't help but notice all of the different greenery and the spaciousness and the wellness proposition. So we have to share these important pieces of feedback with the teams that are actually managing the properties. And without being too cliche, I think it's always a balance between carrots and sticks. So in addition to sharing the annual KPIs and targets related to this overarching goal, I think we need to celebrate the short-term milestones. For example, by supporting different teams to win awards, to share positive customer feedback with them, to bring important stakeholders to visit their property, so the property managers would be able to interact with different types of stakeholders firsthand and be a part of this proposition.
True.
And one of the ways we're trying to bring those targets directly into projects is from last year, we ask every project at the beginning of the project to develop what we're calling a zero waste plan. Obviously, that's very aspirational, but you've got to start somewhere. And within that, they have to really look at individual projects and the work on that project and see what they can do, particularly on the environmental targets, on wastewater, energy, air quality, and to target a small number of big wins that can make a contribution towards those targets that we have in the biggest and the larger strategy.
Great. Such plans really connects the KPI to the purpose, like giving ownership to the project manager. From time to time, we experience that if the project manager is only motivated by the incentive instead of his or her own purpose, the team will not be so driven. So I believe such plan is a really ambitious one, but also a really purposefully led goals. Any other questions? We can take one more. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So thank you, Ellie and Emma, for sharing. So I'm curious about both of you shared how your company is sourcing innovative ideas. Given that both companies have a very long history, I wonder if there are any generational sort of pushbacks from maybe more senior management who belongs to a certain generation, who might want to stick to the status quo, who might be resistant to new ideas. Like, how do you follow through, like, after sourcing those ideas, after those like pitches won the award and like celebrated like short-term gains? How do you really make sure that like those ideas are being followed through and there are actions that are implemented? So, yeah, thank you.
With a great deal of challenge. No, it's one of the things we're doing, and in recognition really of some of these issues is reverse mentoring. So we're starting a formal program of reverse mentoring, particularly for our senior management. We, you know, a lot of, when it comes to digital solutions, we often run the older solution in parallel with the digital solution, and also spend quite a lot of time with helping some of our, particularly the older frontline workers, you know, they're in their 60s, some of them. So adopting some of this new technology is a challenge, but, you know, we try and ask our younger engineers to help them, and so they learn that way. And I think that's a wonderful way, you know, getting that younger and older generation interacting. It brings benefits to both sides, but it's not an easy it's not an easy solution.
Yeah, I agree. I think we share the same challenge, but I think this may or may not have to do with, you know, the age gap or the generational difference per se. It's about fostering a culture of open-mindedness to receive new ideas within as part of the company culture. I think this is the most important point. And of course, you know, a company could run different initiatives, and we have done so as well. For example, we have a young senior management committee where we empower, you know, junior employees to chair meetings to start with, and then have different opportunities to pitch innovative ideas to senior management, as explained earlier. So I think, you know, bits and pieces added up together basically shape, you know, how receptive we are towards new ideas and new way of doing things. And if there are, you know, positive and feasible showcases that we could articulate the why, the how, and the impact, then these would be great opportunities to share with the more traditional, those with more traditional perspective to understand, you know, there could be a newer way of doing things. But at the same time, I think, you know, the industry veterans who, you know, come with a wealth of experience are very important as well, especially in the property and construction business, because we cannot afford having, you know, risks and, you know, whether we're talking about occupational or structural risks. So it's always about, you know, bridging the gap between different stakeholder groups.
True. Recognizing everyone in the company as a source of new energy or a new momentum is important, because Gammon and New World are both very big companies with a lot of people. If everyone like moves forward for one step, it's really a big change already. But anybody who really goes back, it will be pushed back. And I personally experienced that. In a company at this scale, actually, we don't expect everybody to be perfect. Everybody complement each other. And it's important we recognize everyone's strength, experience, and wisdom. And these days, we're talking about like why things need to be bottom up to drive sustainability, because many people in the field actually knows the end user a lot better than the management. And when they hear that from the leaders, it's really impactful, and they will start to speak up. And when the channels are ready, when the digital means are in place, it will help them to comfortably and to express themselves better. That's important. Okay, so thank you very much for sharing today, and the questions are great from the audience. And one of the winners of the audience poll will be notified to receive the gift. So thank you very much for attending our panel session, and hope we can bring this back to all your companies and your people and help to drive our goals forward to the next year, which is must be a better one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicky, and our speakers.